Hey, we're the Massholes. We're on the West Coast. We're the West Coast Massholes. We're the Massholes on the West Coast. We were from Mass. We were holes when we're there, but we came out here and now we're West Coast Massholes. Hey, everybody. Welcome to West Coast Massholes. I'm Todd Anderson, and look who's back. It's Josh Wingate. He came back. He left the show. He quit the show, but then he's come back. Welcome back.
Yeah, I had nothing else to do, you know.
The contract negotiations broke down, and he just walked out. But then he came back a week later because he's got nothing to do. That's how it works here on West Coast Massholes.
Yeah, I was gonna go to Spotify, but you know that's kind of not a popular decision right now. So.
Did you cancel your Spotify?
Oh, I still like Spotify.
So you're keeping Spotify?
Yeah,
but the sound on Spotify sucks. There's so many other music services. Okay. Why not get a better one?
Because I'm raising a child, not worrying about my streaming services.
Well, it's easy enough to get rid of it and use something else. You know, a Pandora, an Amazon Music. Heck, get XM satellite radio. That's exciting. You can get that for like $2 a month or something.
Oh, well, I'll look into it right after this call.
And, you know, and that also, there's plenty of right-wing content on there for you.
That's what I'm looking for.
I didn't start our timer till now, so that was an extra bonus few minutes.
Well, this was part of the contract negotiations, man.
You don't like the extra time? Yeah, I know, but you said you don't like it to come at the end. Usually, like when the alarm goes off, one of us keeps yapping. It's usually you, but you had a problem with that. But this time it happened at the beginning. So I don't know, like we're trying to adjust for your major ego and your diva-ish attitude. Do you think you're like that because you're a musician?
No, I'm a pretentious actor.
Yeah. So you don't really care about Joe Rogan spreading misinformation about vaccinations or the good word of the white supremacist? You don't care about that?
I guess I don't give it much attention.
Well, maybe it'd be better off if you know, all of us just ignored it and it would go away, you know, like fascism.
Yeah, it went away in the 40s.
It's not. There's no more fascism and racism. We ignored that and it's gone. It's fixed.
No such thing.
No, this is not a racist country. Yeah.
You know, I mean, those are big words because then it's like, but yes, I mean,
I got in a whole Facebook fight with somebody who I've removed myself from their feed because of the whole Rogan thing. I mean, he was being snide about Neil Young, you know. He said, good luck with that, Neil. When Neil and now, of course, you know, since then, what is their stock is plummeted by like, they've lost like some crazy billions in value, I guess.
Yeah, like 4 or 5 billion.
Once all these other musicians followed suit, which I think is kind of funny. So that didn't work. But then that guy, I heard he posted another post basically saying, doesn't matter if you take it off, it'll still be $1 million podcast. And I was like, okay, what are you defending, man?
Yeah, you know, people just need something to be mad about, man.
Well, somebody said on Twitter, I wish I remembered who, but I thought this was a salient point. And he said, our biggest problem probably isn't Spotify. If this many fucking people listen to Joe Rogan and take it seriously and live their lives according to his word and are causing this many problems. It's a bigger problem than Joe Rogan. It's a bigger problem than Spotify. I thought that was a good point.
I'll be the first person to admit that I was a Joe Rogan fan. I used to listen to his podcast all the time. And, great interviews like with Mike Tyson. There's one with Kanye, which I thought was fantastic. And just really interesting people and conversations.
Mhm.
Now, that being said, I can't remember the last time I listened. I think the last one I ever listened to was probably the Kanye one. That was a few years ago. That was pre-pandemic,
Well, and
no, it was still in the Trump era, but Rogan fell left of the line. He believes in social education, social health care. So I was always kind of on board with his perspectives most of the time. And I
yeah,
kind
it's
of
like
like
him and
that.
Bill Maher. Him and Bill Maher, their perspectives have shifted as the richer and more popular they've gotten, and the natural course of wealth and popularity in this country is to become an asshole idiot spreading misinformation. That's what happens. I mean, Bill Maher isn't quite at the level of Rogan as far as misinformation is concerned, but he's not helping.
Yeah, I don't know much about him. He always seems so whiny to me, so I never really got into him. But
well, he's whiny and he's never been funny. I like the thing I never got. I mean, I didn't listen to the Rogan podcast because I've always found Rogan to be off-putting. Even on one of my favorite shows of all time, which was News Radio, which I loved. He was my least favorite part of the show. Like I could have talked about his fucking mechanic guy or whatever he was. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, I started watching Bill Maher and I've sort of seen him like over the decades change, like where he started, which is, his political correctness back in the 80s and 90s, that was about conservatives coming after artists, basically, or conservatives saying, you can't curse, or marijuana is bad. Both these guys, which is interesting, both these guys are big stoner like advocates. They're marijuana advocates. And they're both making it look really bad. Like I'm considering not smoking marijuana because I don't want to wind up thinking like them 10 years down the road or whatever, So maybe I should slow down.
It could be that, or it could be the exorbitant amount of like testosterone and human growth hormone that Joe Rogan takes. That could be doing something to alter your
that's true
state of being.
And what do you think? Bill Maher is just like popping Viagra's or Cialises too much or something?
Yeah, see, I can't speak on him. I don't know much about him. I think I know more about, or what I perceive to know about Joe Rogan. I don't really know. I can't remember if I ever even watched an episode of the Bill Maher show. I watched that movie he did that was pro marijuana when he or it was like the religious movie.
Oh, the Religulous, where he went around. Interviewed people from different religions or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's the last thing I've ever seen him ever do. So I never got into it. I'm not too much into politics, but it kind of get, especially people who think they know a lot and they talk a lot and pretend that they know what the hell they're saying. Now, that being said, I think the reason why I was more into Rogan is because I'm into martial arts and MMA, and he's a big part of that world. And they have he has the MMA podcast stuff that he does, and they talk about the fights and the fighters. And he seemed to be a pretty open-minded guy. He seemed a very curious, exploratory type of person. But yeah, as of late, I think, him moving to Texas and, for money reasons and stuff like that. And like you said, like starting to, and I kind of agree with him on some things like mandates, like, if you just start like blindly blanketing certain mandates.
What do you mean? Like vaccine mandates? Like the vaccine mandates that like are in our public schools have been for decades upon
no, but meaning more blanketed, like just like everyone, like, to even come into an establishment or during stuff like that, because you don't know people's backgrounds, you don't know what their medical history is, you don't know some people can't even take it.
Yeah,
like
but that's not that.
yeah.
I mean, that's fine.
Yeah.
There is a small percentage of people who are not eligible for the vaccine because of medical reasons. That's legitimate. And as far as, you know, proving that you're vaccinated or that you have a medical condition that doesn't allow you to get vaccinated and a positive test to get into a crowded indoor place with people, I think is fucking fair. And personally, I don't want to like go to any indoor establishments that don't have certain mandates and rules to keep me safe from getting, because, you know, we got the latest BA.2, the latest variant is already here. And if it's going to blow up again, we're going to have another surge with another variant. I mean, and the way we could stop this is to have a higher vaccination rate. I don't have a problem with vaccine mandates, given that such a large swath of our population is unable to do the right thing for the community.
I understand that.
This is laws. This is why laws get put in place. This is and maybe they're an overreach. Maybe seat belts were an overreach. Maybe bike helmets for children is an overreach. I don't know. It's the government protecting people from their own idiocy. Now, as far as the thing about the vaccine, this particular vaccine, I'm not talking about vaccines at large, just the coronavirus vaccine. It does affect me and my family when other people don't get vaccinated. It puts us at risk. It's the reason the pandemic keeps going, the reason why people who are accepting the reality of COVID have anxiety every time they leave the house to go grocery shopping or to go to the job that they have to go to or whatever. And that would all be fucking gone if people got vaccinated. Now, is it draconian to mandate vaccines on a federal level? Maybe, but maybe it would be a good thing for this particular vaccine to be mandated so we can get past this fucking pandemic. Yeah. I mean, how else are we going to do it? How else are we going to do it, Josh? We're not going to do it by listening to Joe Rogan's bad fucking science. That's for sure.
I'm not disagreeing with you. You know, I think, just to play advocate for a minute, I think the concern with that type of thinking, not your thinking, but his type of thinking, and even some of the messages he put out, is that what does it lead to? If you give, then we're ridding our democracy. If you give the power to the government to mandate a certain thing, you're immediately you're accepting the end of democracy. And that's what a lot of the thought process is.
But that's like ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. It's a thought that exists without history. It takes place in a vacuum. It also takes place in a vacuum in which people have no understanding of what the First Amendment really is and what the Second Amendment really is and what their rights really are and what they mean, and how they're written. You know, they like, everybody screams about the First Amendment because, you know, Neil Young and a bunch of musicians and doctors and you know, crazy liberals who are too liberal for Bill Maher, like they're I'm getting upset. I'm sorry. I've gone on too long about this. I've had too many arguments. It's just, it saddens me that we can't get past this bullshit. And Joe Rogan, however liberal he might have once been, is a part of the problem. People like that are a part of the problem. Misinformation is part of the problem. And sycophancy, religious sycophancy and love of Joe Rogan, and inability to look at him critically and maybe go, yeah, maybe that's not a good idea. You know, because if his audience said, hey, Joe, we love you, but stop with the horse medicine shit. That's misinformation. That's bad. Maybe he would shut up. Maybe he would issue an apology. I'm wrong. I'm sorry. My fans have pointed out my errors, but they don't, because they're sycophants and they hang on his every word. And he makes them think that they're thinking freely, but they're not. They're just regurgitating what Joe Rogan tells them to think. That's the other great thing about these pundits and quote unquote comedians, is that's what happens. They have sycophants, and those sycophants think this is their research. They're learning, they're educating themselves by listening to somebody who's giving them bad information. but they don't, because they don't look like, I look at every source of information skeptically. I don't read the LA Times and think everything they just told me is absolutely correct. One, information changes and it evolves, especially when science and math and things like that are involved. You know, so I just, it's endlessly frustrating to me. This whole place that our country is in is just, it drives me nuts, man.
Well, we could go live in the metaverse and start our new world.
That sounds worse. The metaverse? You mean with
transhumanism? Transhumanism, it's coming. That scares me more than any of this bullshit. This too.
Transhuman, what is that?
That's like, you know, going beyond our humanism into, you know, joining technology.
You mean like the Lawnmower Man?
Maybe I haven't never seen it, but you know, yeah, sure. But
like
you
the
know,
Matrix, you mean like the Matrix?
Yeah. And you know, joining with technology, like I think what's his name, Musk was talking about that too, about that microchip shit in the head and all that fucking craziness. That scares me more than any of this nonsense.
Oh, well, it scares you more than this pandemic. Well, what's interesting about this pandemic, I think,
I did not say pandemic. I said this nonsense.
Oh, this political
and
nonsense.
what? Yeah, the political, like the bickering, the fucking way people are right and wrong, and just like the clear lack of the greater good.
Well, and there are people who are right and there are people who are wrong. And the problem is that we're constantly debating with people who are wrong and giving them this benefit of quote unquote First Amendment. I mean, the First Amendment, it doesn't protect you from Neil Young. It just protects you from the government. It doesn't protect you from me. It doesn't protect you from a boycott. It doesn't protect people from funneling the money that should be going to you elsewhere. It protects you from the fucking government. It doesn't protect you from anybody else. Everybody else who's like protesting Joe Rogan, and that's them exercising their First Amendment rights.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So the government isn't fucking involved in the Joe Rogan thing at all.
No.
The Obamas haven't left Spotify, for example, even though they're not technically in the government anymore. But you see what I'm saying? I mean, it's like that whole thing is bullshit. And this misinformation, by the way, I'm going over time. I'm sorry. I know the negotiations are breaking down again. But all I'm saying is this misinformation is making this pandemic last longer. And this pandemic, because more and more, you know, people working from home, it's all Zoom meetings, it's, you know, and more people are choosing that because they're like, I don't want to fucking leave because I'm being exposed to this disease by all these fucking idiots everywhere. And the more that happens, the more we're doing exactly what you're saying, the more we're becoming intertwined with technology. And that is entirely a result of people like Joe Rogan and the right wing and right-wing politicians and misinformation and cult thinking and idiocy. That's that, you know, that is, if you're afraid of that, you should be afraid of this because it's pushing us there.
Oh, I am. And that's why I try not to engage with people who on all sides. I try not to engage with people who are so locked into a perception that they won't open their mind a little bit and look at it from a different perspective. If we get too emotionally attached to something, you know, when we put on these blinders, maybe we're missing something that could open our perspective a little bit, you know. And I'm not saying I'm not pointing the finger at you, but I mean, people will particularly look for something and take it out of context just to vilify a person of celebrity or a person of, I'm not talking about Rogan per se, but you know, Jordan Peterson is one who has been vilified time and time again for people taking snippets and making it mean something. He's the philosopher, no, the psychiatrist, psychologist. He's been on Rogan. Now he's getting vilified because him and Rogan were talking about race and the literal breakdown of color, and you know, and I think they were talking about the
is this the conversation where Rogan said,
black?
Yeah, this was a conversation about them saying a black man wasn't black because he wasn't black enough. Yeah, I heard that conversation. It's pretty fucking racist.
Yeah, but that's one way to look at it.
How you defend that.
That's one way. No, that's one way to look at it. I think where Peterson. I think it's one way to, no, that's what Rogan said. What I think Peterson is literally talking about is the color is not black. There's different, we all are different spectrums of people. We're not white on white and black on black. The actual creation of the term white is racist in definition. It was created in the 1600s of America to divide and conquer, to separate the indentured servants from the enslaved people of African descent. There was, you know, like the Irish and the poor whites, they had very similar issues, and they would often team up and overthrow their masters or whatever. So laws were created that said, hey, you're like us, you're white. That was the first term white was ever used, and it was to separate. And then the laws changed, so if you were white, you didn't get any as bad of punishments for breaking the rules. They did, and there was this hope instilled in the poor white that would say, hey, you can rise up and be just like us because you look like us. They can't, and this caused separation and divide. So the term black and white are actually, the terms themselves are racist. And I like Peterson. I think he's a highly intelligent man. That conversation I can definitely see how that could be, is a dangerous conversation to have. What I believe, and this is what I'm talking about, perception, is what I believe Peterson was talking about wasn't of racist origin. Like, he doesn't believe that black people should be given their due diligence on what the color. He's talking about the literal translation of the color, saying, I'm not white, I'm like a pinkish or a tan. You're a pinkish, or, you know, so like if you look at the literal translation, that, and what's
the point of that? I mean, I understand that history makes sense, and I understand what you're saying. Mm-hmm. What's the point of that conversation? Like, what is he
I didn't see
say?
The whole episode. That's what I'm saying. We only saw that snip, so we don't know.
We saw the racist snip.
We saw
Joe Rogan being racist.
Yeah.
And in the psychology, well, that's up to the psychologist to get out there and defend himself and remove himself from Joe Rogan's racism, I guess, if he's not. I also don't understand explaining the history of white, the labels, great. Why is bringing it up? Like, I don't know
what, I didn't see the part. Apparently it's a 4.5 hour thing, so I'm not about to go watch that. So, but yeah, I understand. But I think the point that I've been trying to make is, everyone's going to view it and they're going to view it in their own way. But that perspective that I just offered, that, what Peterson was saying, just because there's a friend of mine who's a like super lib, and just because he was on Rogan, period, and he was part of that conversation, makes him an idiot. And it's like, well, that's not really fair to say. Label Peterson an idiot and a total racist, when I would disagree with that entirely.
I wasn't labeling him anything. I was labeling
Rogan. I didn't say you. I was speaking on another conversation I had about this.
But I mean, I guess it's that's an issue of the company you keep. I don't know what to tell you there. If he's getting tarnished because he sat in an interview and the host said something racist on the back of a non-racist thing he was saying, that sucks. But I saw the clip, and he just nodded and laughed and had, he didn't go, whoa, slow down on that. He didn't do that. So
right, but so let's just look at that for a second. Is there a way, because if they are talking about the literal translation of the color, meaning red brick, fire engine red, your hat is navy, we're talking about that type of color spectrum, not about humans, not about people, and they're talking about the label of the color, then what he said wasn't racist.
What the psychologist said, or what Rogan said?
Even what Rogan said. It wasn't said very articulately, but yes.
I think he said, I think it was, unless someone
he's talking
from
about
the darkest part of Africa, then they're not black. That's what he said. And that's something that I have heard.
He talked about the melanin in the skin. But he talked about I understand it was not.
That's fucking racist. Saying that shit is racist. Yeah. I don't know how you, like, just because maybe Rogan doesn't realize it's racist, and I think a lot of racists don't realize they're racist.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, I understand.
Racist, but that doesn't change the fact that it is racist, and it came out of his brain and out of his mouth. That makes him racist.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, I'm just trying to open perspective and say, like, sometimes, and I'm not agreeing. I don't think that conversation was done in good taste at all. So I'm not agreeing. I'm just like to put out different perspectives to talk about it and talk about the points and go, okay, because listen, we live our lives through our own eyes and we see things through our own lenses. And it's easy to see that video in its clip and go, oh, boom, these guys are being racist. It's easy to do that. We haven't seen the whole context of the conversation. I'm not saying I'm not going to go, I don't give a shit enough to go look at it. I don't give a shit enough to go and try and defend anybody or anything like that. I'm just offering different perspective that, people are very quick to light a fire to something right now. And that scares me a lot.
Yeah, that was another thing and a separate thing from the misinformation about COVID and vaccines and all that stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think they're both big deals, both problematic. But I see what you're saying. But I also think I just now I don't get that conversation. I don't get what good it can be to go. There's the color spectrum and then the labels that we have. Like I get it. I get people don't like identity politics and it's separating us and it's blah blah blah. I get that, but so your answer is, hey, let's not talk about race anymore. I mean, how's that gonna?
No, I didn't say that.
Well, but is that the point of that? I don't understand the point of the color spectrum versus racial labels. I don't understand why.
If I were to guess, but I did not see the whole thing. But if I were to guess, that Peterson's point would be because of the problematic labeling of that. And if you look through, and he's an educator, he's thinking in very educational ways, and the problem, like, look at Star Wars, Darth Vader in all black, Luke Skywalker in his nice little white karate gi, good versus evil, white pure, black tarnished evil, so there's this. I think I would guess, I don't have a solid knowing answer, that would be what more Peterson's point would be, like why this separation, that the labels themselves create more problems than they do. And that doesn't, I'm not saying people shouldn't identify how they want to identify. I don't give a fuck what you want to identify as. I'm saying that's probably what I would guess his perspective would be. I don't think like this guy's walking around, but I don't know. But I don't think Peterson's walking around going to a person of color and saying, how do you identify? And they say black. And he's like, you're not black. Like, I don't think he's doing that.
I don't think he's stupid. Okay.
Well, yes, I don't have an answer in anything. I just the perspective. I just think people really.
I'm gonna stay away from Spotify and Joe Rogan. That's what
okay.
All right, there it is. West Coast Massholes. We've gone way over. Josh is going to get very mad once the recording stops, because in the negotiations will break down again. But this has been a wildly long West Coast Massholes with two white guys talking about whether or not two other white guys are racist. We're failures. We've failed. But that doesn't change the fact that we sign off our show like this.
You could have, yes, fuck you Nazis.
Fuck you Nazis.
We still hate Nazis, and
I hate Nazis.
I'd still fucking knock G bits up. Sorry, Kaya. My daughter's watching me be a fool.
You're gonna have to explain that one. It's a teachable moment. Moment.
Yeah. I'll show her. When you throw an elbow, make sure you cut. It's a cutting knife. You don't want to push, but a slice. That's the teach.
Right. That's a good teach. That's
and
a
good middle finger can be done with a tight fist here, or you can do like the M&M, I think, like kind of like the slight thing, because that's kind of a aesthetically pleasing. Like you got the full finger, and then you got like the that's kind of like a cool.
That one represents the balls more. You got more of the balls.
Yeah. So.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
This has been a Blursh production. Blur.